I was hosting my first dinner at Stanford. Already an insecure hostess, this was a pretty stressful occasion for me. I had managed spaghetti and meatballs, which we'll call passable, and I had purchased an obscene quantity of cheap Trader Joe's wine in an attempt to hide my poor cooking. We were well into our third bottle when one of my new friends, Jennifer, turned and said, "Can I ask you a question?" "Sure," I said. I hoped it wasn't going to be anything about the cooking because then I'd have to admit that pretty much everything in front of us had come out of a box. Instead, she said, "Anna, you and Jason have been married for 2 years. What do you think is the secret to love?" My heart was racing as the room turned and stared at me. First, I definitely do not believe that there's a secret. And secondly, I also did not believe that being married for 2 years qualified me as any sort of relationship expert. I can't remember what I said, but I can guarantee that at that time it was neither true nor helpful. It was one of those moments where I really, really wished I had an answer. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this question, and thanks to a lot of you who came to me to ask for love advice. You know who you are, Jackie. I'm here in front of you 1.5 years later with what I think is a true and helpful answer. Love is a wave with highs and lows. Some of our deepest lows are conflict. And although our relationship might appear perfect on the outside, Jason and I are no different from most couples. One of our deepest lows happened 5 years ago. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was devastated. I called Jason and he came home from work immediately. He bought me a train ticket from New York to Boston, and he walked me to Penn Station at 4 in the morning. The next few months were challenging, to say the least. I commuted from Boston to New York, trying to care for my mother, and also trying to do a good job in my work as an investment banking analyst. One weekend, my mom seemed to be doing well, so I decided that I was going to go home and catch up on my work in New York. Jason was on vacation across the country, and he decided to surprise me by coming back early. Of course, I totally agreed to go to a short dinner somewhere in the neighborhood. 30 minutes later, we found ourselves still stuck in a cab. Our cab driver had committed the 8th cardinal sin known only to New Yorkers. He had taken us through Times Square. 45 minutes later, we finally arrived at a charming cubbyhole in the West Village that charmingly kept its reservations on pen and paper and charmingly had lost our reservation. An hour and a half later, we were finally seated. 2 hours later, we had obtained bread and water with the promise of wine on the way. 2.5 hours later was when I completely lost it. I got mad at Jason, I yelled at him, and I accused him of the most heinous of offenses, trying to do something nice for me. How dare he? Despite my egregious behavior, we were married in 2012. And this is one of our wedding photos. Although I remembered talking through this issue, I still wasn't sure why Jason forgave me. So a few weeks ago, I called him to ask him about this. And he said, "At the time, you had an aura of gloom around you." Seriously, an aura of gloom? Yes, an aura of gloom. I blame the context. I didn't blame you. We had had so many happy memories, and I could see a path forward to many more happy memories to come. Love is a wave with highs and lows. When I was researching love, I came across the work of Chipney, a psychologist who studies how we behave in relationships, particularly during conflict. As it turns out, we all have these mental models that deeply impact how we behave, even though we don't realize. The first is this concept of destiny, the idea of meant to be. We're all familiar with this concept, the thought that there is one person out there who we're meant to find. I blame Hollywood and Disney. The second is the idea of growth. This is based on Carol Dweck's work on mindset. Carol says that people who have a growth mindset tend to embrace failure. They view it as an opportunity to learn. People with a fixed mindset instead view failure as a ding against their intelligence, and they stop trying. It turns out that it's remarkably similar in relationships. People who are high on the growth spectrum tend to view conflict as inevitable, as something that needs to be worked through, and even as an opportunity to become closer to your partner. People who are low on the spectrum give up very easily. Destiny is much more complicated. Early on, it can completely kill a relationship. After all, you wouldn't be having a petty squabble with your loved one about where to go for dinner on Friday night if you were meant to be with them, right? Later on, it's much more complicated. On the one hand, it can make you work harder to salvage this relationship that you're meant to be in. But it can also cause denial and avoidance of problems. What's really powerful to me about all of this is it is completely in our minds. We can control it. If we choose to put aside this concept of destiny and instead embrace the idea of growth and the idea of working through the lows, we can all have happier and healthier relationships. When I thought of couples who did this well, I immediately thought of my husband's grandparents. Grandma Ada and Pops have been married for 67 years. 2 years ago, we celebrated their 65th anniversary. It was so moving to see how happy they were to have their kids, their grandkids, and their great-grandkids all assembled in one room. This is a photo of them in 1949 when they got married. And this is another photo more recently taken right before the party. When I called to ask them what they thought about love and relationships, I learned some interesting things. First, I learned that my husband had sneakily been talking to Pops almost since the day we got married and getting his advice. I would argue that Jason has been employing Pops' advice to great effect in our relationship. According to Pops, there are 3 little words that can make for a successful marriage. And they are, yes, my dear. But in all seriousness, Grandma Ada did give me some real material to work with. She said, we've shared some incredible highs, the birth of our children as one example, but we've also shared some really deep lows, in particular the health problems they've experienced recently as they've gotten older. At any moment, she said, you have the choice to stay in a relationship or to leave it, particularly when times get tough. Maybe I'm a little bit higher on destiny than I'd like to admit, but I was surprised. I thought that they were going to talk about love and the meant to be, and instead, both of them just talked about how hard it was. This wasn't at all what I was expecting to hear. Love is a wave with highs and lows. My wish for all of us sitting in this room today is that we can put aside this idea of destiny, that we can stop thinking about the meant to be and instead embrace what we have today. If we embrace the work that the lows take to get through, we can all have healthier and happier friendships, family relationships, and yes, even romantic relationships with our loved ones. Thank you.